I'm Sarah Borson-Keto. In conjunction with NAREIT's REIT Week 2021 Investor Conference, I'm speaking today with Chris Zarnacki, President and CEO of Broadstone Net Lease. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today.
Of course, it's my pleasure to be here.
Overall, how would you describe key operating metrics for tenants across your portfolio as we approach mid-year?
I think there's a couple of things that we focus on at the portfolio level. Occupancy is obviously a big part of that dynamic, and our occupancy actually increased during the first quarter by about 50 basis points to just shy of 100%, so 99.7%. So we've continued to maintain very strong occupancy at the portfolio level. And then while it wasn't always a common metric, following rent collections from our tenants as well has been very important for us over the past year. And we weren't dramatically impacted by COVID, thankfully, and had very strong collections. And I think at this point, we've really returned to a more normalized operating environment. And we saw that in the first quarter with our rent collections being 99.8%. So again, very strong there and pretty much best in class. But when I drill down to the tenant level a little bit more, we do receive financial reporting from about 95% of our tenants. And so we do get a very good look into their business, both real time and on a historic basis. And I'd say tenant health in general has been stable to improving over the last couple of quarters. And I think that shows through in some of the conversations we've been having with our tenants and their bullishness on their future prospects and even some growth in opportunities for us to be a part of as well. On a more, I would say, micro level, one of our industries is casual dining. And I would, point out that we had been fairly bearish over the last couple quarters and earnings calls and discussions with the investor community that we were less focused on casual dining and had a pause on there as they obviously worked through difficult times with the pandemic. And while we're not rushing back into casual dining by any stretch of the imagination, we are feeling more neutral about it, both on what we're seeing from our tenants and their ramp back towards more normalized operating levels and what we're seeing more broadly in the space. So those are just small examples of it. But what I think it all comes together for us is really that our portfolio is in great shape and it gives us an ability to focus on our growth strategy, which was key for us coming out of the IPO.
Can you talk about Broadstone's recent acquisition activity, your expectations for the rest of 2021, and the types of competition that you're facing?
Since our IPO in late September of last year, so we've got about 2 quarters under our belt now, we've deployed just over $187 million of capital. And it's very complementary what we've done so far to our existing portfolio. It's been a good mix of industrial assets, healthcare, and retail properties and fits our diversified strategy. The weighted average lease term of those acquisitions has been just about 15 years. And we've had very solid annual rent increases. So it's very much fit the Broadstone model in almost every way. So very happy with where we've been for the last 2 quarters. Our guidance to the investor community for 2021 was between $450 million and $550 million of new gross acquisitions for the year. Also feel like we're in a good spot relative to that. On our Q1 earnings call, we obviously had our Q1 results and also communicated a pipeline north of $200 million. And so, those results in hand make us feel like we're definitely in the right trajectory for May at this point and working towards being able to meet that guidance. I'd say more generally on the competition front, the net lease asset class has continued to garner more interest. More folks in the net lease REIT arena and some more private players as well. It has been a very investable asset class during this time because of the very granular nature of it, the ability to underwrite a single tenant and have a view towards their long-term health. So I'd say the competition has continued to increase. But at the same time, our diversified and multifaceted strategy allows us to be very thoughtful when we think about deploying capital. So the industrial asset class, very popular today, gets a lot of attention on the logistics and warehousing and last mile side of the business is something we do a good amount of, but that's not the only part of industrial where we've been active. We've long been doing light manufacturing, cold storage, food processing, flex space. And so while the headline part of the industrial market might be very full of competition, I think there's other opportunities for us to be active and really think hard about risk-adjusted returns and deploy capital in a smart and effective manner. And so I always like to point out that painting with too broad of a brush also doesn't go into the level of detail that's really important to our business and our diversified strategy.
What are some of the ways that Broadstone is reaching out to new investors, and what opportunities do you see in that area?
I think being a newly public company, that's of crucial importance to us. And so pre-IPO, our investor base was comprised entirely of ultra high net worth investors, so a very different asset class. And in the IPO, we sold about 25% of our shares to institutional investors. So we do have a new type of investor there as well. And we're working very hard to continue to serve both of those groups of investors as good stewards of their capital. But we do see and expect that the institutional side will continue to grow over time. We are active on that front and devoting efforts to it. We just are working through our first non-deal roadshows to get out and update investors post-IPO as to our plans. We'll be very active on the investment banking REIT conference circuit this year as well. And then I think as we continue to grow and look at potentially offering or raising additional capital through either our ATM program, which we'll be looking to put in place very soon, or additional follow-on offerings. Those are great opportunities to take the story out to a broader institutional audience and continue to garner more interest that way. So I think there's a lot of activity on that front, and we're really just at the beginning stages of beginning to show Broadstone to a much wider audience of investors.
Chris, thanks so much for joining me.
It was my pleasure as always. Thank you.
And for more news and information from REIT Week, be sure to visit NAREIT's website, REIT.com.